Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Getting Back to Work Safely in Construction. Our goal today is to introduce you to the Avetta Marketplace, as well as connect you with Modify, one of our partners within the Avetta Marketplace. My name is Landon. I'm the Supplier Marketing Manager for Avetta, and I'll serve as the host and moderator of today's webinar. As we go through the presentation today, so you know what to expect in terms of agenda, we'll first start with a brief look at the Avetta Marketplace, followed by our keynote presentation from Jim Poss of Modify and our special guest, Jenny Moshea from Sellen Construction. As we go through the presentation, if you have any questions, just simply type them into the Q&A box or the chat box ribbon at the bottom of your screen. Either will work, and we'll address those questions at the end of the presentation. Okay, let's go ahead and jump in. Mark, do you want to get us started?
Yeah, thanks so much, Landon. Appreciate it. I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar. We're glad that you've made some time out of your schedule to participate with this. Briefly, let's just talk about Marketplace. What is the Avetta Marketplace? It's really curated savings and discounts exclusive to Avetta suppliers. So what we're doing is we're going out and strategically partnering with companies to bring you products and services that we know that will benefit you and your company. We do focus on what we call the core three categories. That is insurance, safety products, and safety-related services. Modify, who we have today speaking with us, falls into the safety-related services category. And if we can go to the next slide, please. To get to Marketplace, after you log into your Connect login, it's in the upper right-hand corner of that landing page for your company. You just simply click on that, and it takes you directly to the Avetta Marketplace, where you can view, sort, see the different companies that we have in there, as well as the different offerings within those companies, specifically for you as our supplier community. What we want to do is drive value back to you as much as we can, because we know that anytime that you can save money and put money back to your bottom line, the better off you're going to be. We are super excited today to have Jim Poss with Modify. He's one of our premier partners, strategic partners in Marketplace, and our keynote address today. So what I'd like to do is turn the time over to Jim.
Thank you, Mark, and it's a pleasure being a part of the Marketplace. As the people on the line here know, Avetta is all about safety and providing products and services to make people safer. We are an app builder that builds lots of different kinds of products, mainly for logistics. But as we've begun our Avetta Marketplace membership and partnership, we have created a bunch of applications in the safety space. Jenny Moshea is with Sellen Construction, one of the leaders in the Northwest. We'll ask a lot of questions more about that, but they're very innovative technologically, and really should be a good resource, at least especially for the construction industry, in terms of how to be successful, how to keep people at work and make sure that they come home safely. So with that, I'd love to introduce Jenny and Sellen Construction. I'll kick it off with a first question. Maybe it's a statement. Please tell us a little bit more about Sellen, how big you are, employees, what kind of projects you do.
Sure. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate the intro. Jenny Moshea with Sellen Construction. We're one of the largest general contractors in the Pacific Northwest. We've had a 75-year history of just work pretty much in the Seattle core. And our specialties are office, high-rise residential, healthcare, education, and then arts and culture. And so I think of the city's skyline of Seattle as a lot of the Sellen projects over time. And for example, the spheres we recently built, the Amazon spheres, has changed the tourist map of Seattle. So those are some of the exciting projects we're on. We have about 800 employees. About 500 of those are office folks. And that fluctuates, especially with times like these. But yeah, so background on Sellen. I've been with Sellen for about 3 years and came from the technology space. So I am a rare bird in the construction area.
Well, it's all about efficiency and transparency when you're dealing with these kinds of things. So, and I have noticed a few of your buildings, Amazon and all of the buildings that have gone up in the last 10 years in Seattle have sort of doubled the skyline of Seattle. Do you have any stats you want to share or can share with us about how many square feet of space there is now versus 10 years ago?
Oh boy, you're going to stump me on that one. I leave that to the business development side of our business. So I'm going to have to get back to you on that.
Sorry for the curveball so early.
No, that's good. We worked for a lot, many of years. It's a relationship-based business. So we don't do direct marketing. We've had a lot of good partnerships with commercial real estate and developers in our area. So it's an ongoing partnership and carries through.
Now, a follow on to how many people you have working at the company. 800 sure is a lot of employees in the construction space. I imagine that you're probably one of the largest in the nation, or certainly you're the largest or one of the largest out here in this part of the world. What is if you know, what is a breakdown of employees versus contractors? You sub out a lot of the work?
Oh, for sure. We only self-perform 20% of our project work, basically. So things around the concrete core. The rest is our partnership with all of our subcontractors. And so, throughout this pandemic, we've been still, providing mission critical services to the healthcare space primarily with essential projects that carry forward. And our footprint, continues with our subs. We have dozens to hundreds of subs any given time. So we have 7 large projects underway right now, and a couple dozen of our special projects, which are projects under a certain size. And so the subs mix is continued. One project alone has 300 people a day checking in through our gate process.
Wow. And so here we are in the middle of a pandemic, or the midst of a pandemic. Hopefully it's, we're past the middle, who knows, but you have lots of different companies now working together. I think there's training that you can do with employees because it's high touch and each other. How different is it to have that communication and that collaboration from general to sub to sub to sub? How hard is it to keep everybody on the same page there?
Everybody is in it for the same reasons, and we all are it's a very partner-based business. And so it's collaborative, and we're all following the early construction guidelines that we received from the governor's office so that we can put people back to work. And so everybody's on tip top trying to accommodate the new restrictions and requirements to keep everyone safe. That is the #1 guiding principle, and no one disagrees with safety first on our job sites. And so that's pretty easy to do. It's just a matter of getting the communication out. And we've struck a number of ways of keeping our subs informed. We have physical posters at our job sites surrounding the areas. We have online training available. And we also keep people updated with video and email communications with the latest adjustments to procedures as they come forward.
And do you find that that seems to be a pretty, I don't know, maybe push-oriented way of keeping people up to date on the requirements? Have you been able to facilitate best practices and learning between one group and another, or you just share knowledge? How does that process play out?
For sure. We have safety managers on each of our projects, and so they regularly feed our operational excellence team and our COVID task force as well. And so we can make modifications based on what is and isn't working. So there was a big swirl when the masks were required, because wearing masks with safety glasses is very difficult, and you typically have fogging issues. So we're getting creative with blue painter's tape across the nose bridge to reduce fogging, moving around certain layers of the masks. And our PPE or personal protective equipment has evolved, on an accelerated path, because people are now trying, things that we were bringing into our job sites over time have now accelerated in adoption, like the full, more updated headgear with also the face masks, the full protection versus the cloth masks, so that people can work. But it's still tough. It's tough if you think about just mowing your lawn with a mask on and how that feels when you're done. And it's not easy to breathe and do the things, especially as we pick up heat here in the summer.
I guess it's not so different for the folks who are used to wearing the respirators because they're sanding, lead paint or whatnot. But for the rest of us, it is quite an adjustment to make.
Yeah, becoming more commonplace for sure. But we're finding it's interesting, and this time has really accelerated the adoption of technology. And so it's thrilling, actually. I mean, my team, I just had the first day off in 3 months straight, through weekends and everything through this. So, but it's been—
Congratulations.
Thanks. But I went and flew a kite. But it's been exciting because our average age of our employees is 56. Think about it. I mean, the span of ages is actually 72 to 19 on our job sites, but the average is 56. There's a lot of folks that are like, where has this zero touch capability been my whole life? I mean, I've got people talking in terms they didn't even have words for previously. So, the zero touch check-in process with a QR code solution we whipped up in a couple days. Sensor-based things like Modify are huge right now, and becoming more and more important to just monitor and connect to Internet of Things. And we've always had sensors in our concrete, in our air, and now temperature and things like that to keep people safe on all around the whole perimeter of a job site. So it's really exciting because we're riding the wave. My whole team is thrilled because we're like, finally, people are getting it. Like, we can do this.
Yeah, finally, we don't have to fly to a conference in Vegas to talk to each other. We can just have conversations like this and get back to work half an hour later.
Right.
Right. That's interesting. So, more on the technology you're finding, are you using any contact tracing technology? I know Google and Apple have partnered to do that. What's your protocol for, like, if somebody gets sick, how do you know who else might be exposed, or what kind of things are you doing there?
So we have a whole procedure from the moment someone checks into a job site using a QR code for the touchless entry. So they fill out a form on their own device, and they can be apart from each other with social distancing or physical distancing. We don't like to keep people socially distant, but physically distant.
I agree with that, by the way. I like the nomenclature a lot better.
So, but they fill in this form, and if they answer yes to the certain required questions by the state for construction, that their form gets routed to our director of risk, our director of safety, and director of HR for tracking. And so they then have a procedure to notify people that maybe have in the area. And we have shut down job sites for a 48-hour period in the early days of COVID, when we were first learning about the different symptoms and how to isolate.
So that brings up an interesting question. Obviously we all want to make money and get back to work and be safe doing so. But there's almost potentially like a disincentive for people. Like, you could imagine, and I'm just imagining here, I'm sure this plays out in the real world, but not everywhere, that there's a disincentive to say, hey, I'm feeling under the weather, I'm feeling sick, but I really need the job, I need to get back to work. Is there any security or protection or a safety layer that you're offering people to say, hey, just if you're even a little bit sick, just stay home, you're going to get paid anyway, or something like that?
Yes, for sure. And we have a number of impressive statistics with the COVID pay that people have taken advantage of just out of an abundance of caution. And so happy to provide that. We provide that as a benefit in the state as well. And so we've had to toss in some new benefit codes to our time tracking pretty quick to be able to handle that, because there was a period of time where we paid people anyway just to stay. home, then, flipped into the benefit mechanism. And so it's definitely something, a constant reminder, because we're only as good as the humans putting in their, certification that they don't have a temperature above a certain amount and they do feel pretty good. And so, but there's people, we have, safety officers and COVID task force folks that are at our large job sites and watching people. And we do have the ability for people to take their temperature anytime. And so, yeah, that it's definitely an honor system to some degree.
Well, they say a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So
I was going to say, until we can chip people, which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I mean, we're for better and worse, we're in this together, and we need to look after each other and have each other's backs, and just make sure that the community is stronger than the individual, if you will, right? Or that the community supports the individual, so we can all get through this safely.
Yeah, and we continue to hear stories of, everyone's been touched in different ways. And so just the reminders of, when two parents are in the hospital and they can't be home with their children because of COVID. And they're real stories with people right next to us in our extended family, in the Sellen family with our subs. And so we're following up and checking on folks and just reminding people that, you may not have personally been affected, but you may know somebody, and just keeping those stories front and center. So it's not something that happens to everyone else and not us.
How do you have work sites, job sites where the client is still there? Maybe you're doing a partial construction at a site where there are people still in the hospital. You're doing one wing, and you're interfacing with those customers. I'm sure they feel better knowing that you're taking care of business. But is there a tenuousness or fragility or resistance there to commingle?
There's for sure.
Business? Okay.
Yeah, for sure, Jim. And for example, some of our big hospital projects, we were right in line with the frontline workers, with the nurses and doctors as they queued up in the morning in the early parts of going back to work. And so that was a concern for our teams. And we didn't, for both parties were interested in separating that and creating more distance. And so we were able to navigate different entry points for our construction teams than the healthcare workers. And then so the queues could be manageable as well as we went the first days where everybody had to physically take their temperature at the site. And so for sure that's a top concern, but we're right there and everybody is super appreciative. Our clients have been tremendously accommodating and appreciative of the impacts to their original estimates or projects, because timelines have shifted and impacts with the supply chain throughout the world. And so we're all in it together, to your point.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to share a couple of the slides that you shared with me.
Sure.
I'll share my screen, and out of your deck, I picked out a couple that I found to be very interesting. So can you see my screen all right?
Yeah, sure can.
All right. So nice looking office space, and people are socially distanced there. So your guiding principles through the pandemic, this may be obvious, may not be, but
yeah, for sure. This is our,
speak to this.
Yeah, our guiding light. So knowing that there's not a return to the, there is a new normal in our return, but the number one priority has always been keeping everyone in our family safe. And that includes subs, partners, clients, owners, you name it. And then we have, to be responsible, fiscally responsible, having to manage our costs and look at, take another pass at refining our budgets. And then our care for the community and our ongoing giving campaigns that were accelerated at points in time. And then living our purpose. So our purpose to improve the lives of those around us as builders, partners, and neighbors. And so that continues to drive everything we do and be a guiding light for our activities in the field.
Well, I've seen this play out, the community and living your purpose a little bit. I know a little bit of an anecdote of something that you're tangentially involved with, a company called Food Pair, or a nonprofit called Food Pair. And you are, interestingly, I found this very interesting, you're supporting the local restaurants by buying things from the local restaurants, and just keeping the community and this ecosystem intact is one of your priorities.
Sure.
What do you see? How do you see that playing out? And you know, I guess how codependent are you on things like that?
Yeah, I mean, being in the Seattle core, we're dependent on the restaurants and coffee shops that serve our folks and keep us fueled and caffeinated. And so we've always been trying to support local folks. We even originally, when this first started to go down, is supported our local radio station with a playlist to all of our employees that was curated for our employees. And so anything we can do to support local businesses is key. And there's logistics that have emerged with the check-in process alone and the requirements to get back to construction early, and to provide care for essential projects like healthcare, required us to be creative, because people don't have the time to go in and out of the gate to go pick up lunch, and you can't be bringing in bags of refrigerated required food because things are taped off. And so the logistics of getting food in and out of a site, or people going back through the checkout process, didn't make sense. And so what we try and do on occasion is bring food in secure ways that we can, you know, have boxed, and everything they need is in that box. And, you know, gone are the days of sharing a box of donuts or a pizza. And so it just makes sense. And it's, you know, other logistics that have come about that have actually improved some of the time frames are like the simple trip to the restroom. In a high-rise construction, people would go down the man lift and go to different floors to either eat or use the facilities. And so we've now, with COVID, has required, you know, facilities on every single floor, so people can take their breaks right where they're at, and has actually increased some time efficiencies. And that's not across the board, but in some cases we've had increased efficiencies that offset the decreased efficiencies.
Sure, sure. Well, you know, when they say necessity is the mother of invention, and when you live in a constrained environment, you come up with new ways, and hopefully we all come out of this more productive, more efficient, more sustainable.
For sure, and you know, or at least open to that change more than ever before. So.
Yeah. So you've been at it basically since April. Here we are just in June, a couple months back in. Are there any just general lessons that you could share with the folks on the line, and that, you know, may be transferable from, you know, really good lessons that you've learned that you'd like to pass along?
Yeah, for sure. I would encourage the, you know, flexibility of your technology teams and folks to respond and hear out the actual limitations of physical interaction with devices, you know, and accelerate your technology roadmaps where possible. Our roadmap hasn't changed, but we've had to shift things around because of limitations in certain, you know, large file transfers, for example, if we're doing a cloud migration. And so some things have been throttled for emergency services, and we've been balancing those. But things like, you know, any paper-based ticketing system, for example, there's procedures in the field that we're uncovering that I've never known about for 3 years of being at Sellen. So for example, concrete tickets, a simple thing, but it's been paper-based. So automating concrete tickets, that whole process. You know, capturing parking parking slips, or anything people were doing. I recently discovered our crane operators were taking a clipboard up with them to the cab. So we've given them an iPad instead, and they're just marking off their digital checklist now, and they're able to now take pictures at the top when things are noticeable. And so, you know, taking advantage of those phone calls. I've gotten phone calls from corners of the business I've never heard from before, or have tried to reach out, but they've been too busy to deal with technology, that now they're wide open to it because they want to avoid the touching of paper or picking up pens for sign-in, or all the logistics that you just don't even think about sometimes.
Right. So parking slip, does this mean we're not going to get paper parking tickets anymore if we park illegally? It's just, that's out?
I hope so. That's a City of Seattle thing. I'll work on that. But for sure, and then also the communication. I mean, you can't over communicate in times like these, and whether or not it's an opportunity to pepper in what you're doing from a technology perspective, or how I've taken the opportunity with our communications from our CEO to weave in how these dots are connecting across our system and our ecosystem to bring efficiencies and workflows together for the first time. And so, we're actually in the middle of a cloud to cloud migration right now for our ERP and cutting over the holiday weekend. And people are like, oh no, we're going to work over the holiday weekend to catch up. I'm like, well, this is our gift to you to take the holiday and enjoy. And so people are actually appreciating that.
Yeah, sure. I saw in your presentation, this kind of stuff, I see this around. It's, pretty obvious right down from the governor's office and the CDC and Dr. Fauci, this is what you should do. But I found this one to be really interesting, this traffic flow modifications and seating rotation assignments. And it made me think, this is obviously this is the right way to do things. People need to be able to spread out. And I'm wondering if becoming a leader or learning things about architecture and layout is impacting on the client side. What do people want to build? Because it used to be open spaces and shared spaces and WeWork and infrastructure and let's share everything. And now, no. We want a new layout, and I'm wondering if your experience in doing this is leading you to be, or helping you become a leader in what the architecture or layout of the future what might look like.
For sure. This is definitely an emerging and fluid space right now for architects and our partners with our integrated design projects, where we do influence design early in the process. And it is being considered and evaluated, along with, again, back to sensor technology and being able to have responsive space. That's all part of this, as well as just whether, to what extent people return to office space and versus remote working environments. And so I think we'll see more of a hybrid accommodation for how people land and hoteling spaces, but being more reserve-based and reservation-based, and then also not so open. So it's we are the open office concept has been a large debate for many years, especially in recent times, and I think that see that reducing in the future.
Well, that is fascinating, and I hope that the things that you're learning and the innovations you're making carry forward and puts you in a leadership position in terms of thinking ahead of what does an office space look like, and what does a work from home hybrid situation work like. And I hope everybody comes out of this smarter and better and a little bit more community minded, or we're all in this together kind of attitude.
Yeah, for sure. And, we've been, whether or not it's through my technology peer groups or my construction industry peer groups or our clients, I've been sharing our QR code solution with everybody and walking people through how we did that. And there's a lot of sharing going on right now because we're all solving for the same requirements. We want to get people back to business,
Yeah. All right.
Even if it's the zoo.
Yeah. Well, the animals need to be visited from time to time.
Yes, they do.
And people need to pay the gate fee to feed the animals. So I have a couple questions that have come in from the gallery here.
Great.
I'm in Connecticut. As far as East Coast, are you growing more? Are the guidelines different depending on the state?
I think they're very different depending on the states. You would want to work with your local governing agency. And we've only ever been in the Seattle core area for 75 years. I don't imagine us expanding too far beyond that boundary. But
Yep. I've worked across state lines for a long time, and I know that we're all, in a lot of ways, we're 50 states, and depending on the month, somewhere between 10 and 50 different countries in terms of how we kind of look at things and deal with things. And so I imagine you're just going to have different guidelines at different places at different times, and they're going to, Oh, fluid, right?
Well, yeah, and as states, start to release activities, and then the COVID cases go back up, there's fluctuations and adjustments. So we do watch our King County statistics on a daily basis as an executive team, and so we're watching those graphs go down until yesterday when they started going back up. So make sure, yeah, it's like you can tell after certain gathering events and things that people spikes a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. It looks like protests and pool parties may be the spreader events these days, and hopefully we just figure out how to live the new normal and just keep on going. One more question: what happens if I don't feel good and I stayed home thinking that I may have COVID-19, and after the test shows I'm negative? Do I just lose that time off, or do you get a pass?
The specifics of that are being tracked by our risk team, but it is being handled. You do get paid for that time that you're quarantined. And so that's managed on a case by case basis. And for sure, that's better safe than sorry. So we want to make sure people are taken care of during that time. And that is the purpose of that COVID benefit, so that you can wait until those test results are available. And that's even more of the sense of urgency around the test results coming in faster and faster. So.
Yeah. Well, I think certainly Seattle is better off with you in it, and your leadership and safety measures and just the maturity in dealing with this, and your community-minded approach to keeping the local restaurants alive and keeping your average 56-year-old worker coming home safely and coming back to work safely. So all of us appreciate the time you spent with us. Hopefully the crowd can learn a couple of things and pass along and share. Let's see.
Yeah. Feel free. Well, thanks, Jim. Yeah, and feel free.
Yeah, one person said, should my company have a get back to work plan involving best practices? You're excellent. Thank you very much. I would say
absolutely.
Yeah.
We have a safety site plan for everything, including our headquarters. So
yeah, as a follow-up, I'm going to talk to Mark Swenson here from Avetta and thank him again for putting this together. Mark, I think we should put together a best practices sharing forum of some sort, so that your membership can bubble up good ideas and share them, and hopefully it makes everybody better.
For sure. Yeah,
that sounds great. Absolutely great.
Jenny, thank you again.
Yeah, we do appreciate Jenny and Jim's participation here today, and there'll be some additional webinars and some additional information coming out from the Avetta Marketplace to the supplier community that we have here at Avetta. As Jim said, probably putting together a best practices type of webinar for everybody to participate in. We do thank you, Jenny, Jim, for your participation today. Thank you, everybody, for following up. We will be able to send a recording out to you so you can view it again if you'd like, and look for more information coming from the Avetta Marketplace and our strategic partners. And we appreciate everybody's time today.
Yes, thank you again.
Thanks, everyone.
Be safe and well.
Bye.
Bye-bye.